Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. Selfishness seems to be one of the defining characteristics of our day. People of influence often put themselves first rather than the greater causes that they are supposed to be serving. Politicians put their careers first, even if it harms the society they're supposed to be leading. Business people put themselves first and harm the companies they're supposed to be leading. Celebrities and sometimes even tragically church leaders do what is best for themselves, never mind the consequences for others. There's nothing new in this. 12 centuries ago, there was a military commander in Sicily called Euphemius. And Sicily at that time was controlled by the Byzantine Empire with its capital in Constantinople. Constantinople had incredible strong walls around it. It was a wealthy city. It had an incredible architecture. It truly was at the time the greatest city in the world. And they controlled Sicily as well. And now Euphemius, he was one of the commanders, a military commander in Sicily. And he fell in love with a lady, but she was a nun. And he persuaded her to leave the convent and to elope with him. Her brothers complained about this to the emperor, and according to the laws in the empire at that time, to persuade a nun to actually leave her calling and her cloistered life was considered a serious offense. And so her brothers complained to the emperor, and the emperor ordered the governor of Sicily to investigate Euphemius. And he said, if he is found guilty, then you've to cut off his nose as a punishment, presumably for sticking his nose in where it wasn't wanted. Well, Euphemius knew that the investigation was going to go against him because he couldn't really argue with the facts of the case. And so he rebelled and he raised an army. He actually managed to kill the governor of Sicily, which meant that he was in even more trouble with the emperor in Constantinople. So he even declared himself to be the new emperor, even though he was nowhere near the city. Ultimately, he failed. Ultimately, he was killed. And yet, all these attempts to avoid the consequences of his behavior and grabbing whatever he wanted was to have drastic consequences, because I said that he raised an army. But he went to North Africa to do it. He raised up an army of the Saracens. And they ended up Muslims. And they ended up ruling Sicily for the next 300 years. And because of Constantinople losing their western base in the Mediterranean in Sicily, therefore they were greatly weakened. And eventually it took a while, but it took a number of generations, but the empire in Constantinople grew weaker. They ended up being defeated. The city was conquered by more Muslim forces. Constantinople is now Istanbul in Turkey. And as a result, many of the churches that we know from the book of Revelation, the 7 churches of the book of Revelation, the church at Ephesus, for example, and many other great centers of early Christianity became part of what we now know as the Islamic world. And a huge part of that was Euphemius and his selfishness. His selfishness destroyed the nations and even the empire that he was supposed to be serving. And you contrast that with Jesus, when Jesus laid everything down for us, because the opposite of selfishness is servant leadership, where we put others first. And today, whatever role you have, you might be leading a church, you might be leading a family, you might be leading a prayer group, you might be leading a children's class at church. I don't know who you lead or what you lead or how you lead it, but I would encourage you today, don't allow selfishness to deflect you from your God-given calling. And as you serve with a servant heart, may God open doors for you and bless you and the people you are serving in Jesus' name. Thank you for joining us for this Take 5. Join us again next time for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.